Hey, fam. So this morning, I pick up, and Jesus is still with his disciples, and they're still going around and teaching and healing and things like that. And where the story picks up predominantly in Mark chapter 8 and Matthew 16, I think it was. Um, Jesus had just fed the 5,000 people, right, with the boys' bread and fish. And in Mark, Jesus then, after the crowds were with him for like 3 days, they were hungry, and he asked the disciples if they had food to feed them, and they're like, "Well, we just got a couple loaves and some fish or whatever." And so um, Jesus did the same thing. He prayed and blessed the bread and the fish. The disciples handed it out, and they got it back with seven. Everybody ate till they were satisfied, all 4,000 people. And then they had seven full baskets of stuff left over, of food left over. And then the Pharisees begin to question Jesus. And so Jesus tells the disciples, hey, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And of course, leaven is the agent within bread when you're baking it that allows bread to rise. And so the disciples were thinking, "Oh man, Jesus is saying, hey, yeah, again, taking this literally, Jesus is saying that we need bread to feed people, but we can't like use the leaven that the Pharisees have or something. I don't know." And Jesus like questions them, knowing that they're thinking this. He's like, "Don't you guys understand? Um, when there was 5,000 people, how did we feed them?" They told him. "Okay, if there was 4,000 people, how did we feed them?" They told him, and how much you had left over and all of that. And and then their eyes were open when he was explaining this parable to them, or this phenomenon to them, and they understood that the leaven that Jesus was talking about was the teaching of the Pharisees. And he's telling them to beware of that. And then he calls them to sacrificial discipleship. That's when he says, if you're going to follow me, you have to take up your cross and follow me. And think about at that time, what was the cross? Well, the cross was a Roman form of extreme execution. And so he was telling his disciples, if you're going to follow me, you need to be willing to suffer a foreign and extreme form of torture and death. That's what following me requires. Um, and in Mark 9, Mark 8, the chapter ends with what really struck me from this morning's reading is that Jesus said, and listen, if you are ashamed of me and my teachings, then I will be ashamed of you when I return. And, I just thought, how many times in my life am I subtly ashamed of Jesus and you? And we ought not to be, because Mark 8:38, whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels.